What, according to you, is storytelling?
First is what happened. Second is why it happened. Third is what is likely to happen if this continues. And the last one is what should you do about it?
Now I have to present it to, let's say, Chief Operating Officer. What should I consider so that it is suitable for that particular stakeholder?
We are humans, right? We have a lot of biases. So let the data do the decision making. You don't have to be biased about anything.
How good is Power BI? How did you find Power BI to be a suitable tool for all this work?
I think the first one, right, the hero journey, right? It's more about finding the highs of the data, or let's say, what is going well.
We use a lot of charts. So how somebody can decide which chart to use or which visual diagram to use for a particular presentation? A larger question would be ethics or ethical considerations when you're using data. Are there any considerations when you are using it to tell a story or presenting it to X number of stakeholders? We are living in a world where AI seems capable of doing everything, but storytelling fundamentally still remains a very, very human skill. Good morning, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Future Forward, a podcast series by Techcanvass on artificial intelligence, business analysis, and data analytics. Every week, we invite an industry expert to have a discussion on a particular topic. So before I tell you the topic for today's episode, let me share a quote. So data tells you what is happening, but story makes you feel why it matters. So you must have guessed the topic for today. It is going to be about mastering the art of storytelling with data. We are living in a world where AI seems capable of doing everything, but storytelling fundamentally still remains a very, very human skill. That's why we decided to have an episode on storytelling with data. And to talk about that, we have a skilled storyteller and a communicator with the ability to simplify complex data concepts. Deepak Bhattacharya is a business intelligence architect at Tiger Analytics with over a decade of experience playing a variety of data-related roles. He has delivered more than 50 data analytics projects, leveraging agile and project management best practices. So let's welcome today's guest. Hi Deepak, welcome to the show today.
Hi Abhishek, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's start with the usual question. Tell us about your professional career.
Sure. So I think no professional career starts before going back to the education days. So I've always lived here in Mumbai. I did my schooling here, followed by the college here. So interestingly, I was supposed to do my engineering, but I couldn't get admissions here in the Mumbai colleges. So I did my bachelor's in IT instead, BSc IT from Mumbai University. So after that, it was like we were all very clueless about, what is the next thing to do? Because back then, there was a lot of boom into Android development. It was a lot into Java. We were all just, taking up those technologies. And trust me, it was very difficult to, understand the job market and get there. So my journey with data started with something very, I would say, a gift of some of my relatives. They had a role which just included just managing spreadsheets, right? So I was very clueless about this entire Excel thing, right? So all we knew as college grads was Java and tools like C#, C++, etc. So I was fortunate to get introduced to Microsoft Excel at a very starting of my career. And that's how I got into data analytics. So primarily, I started off by just, building reports. And after that, it was no looking back. So in terms of learning more tools like SQL, I moved on to, work for startups where they were leveraging some big data tools. So I got my hands on using R, Python. Then I moved on to bigger companies who had bigger data. So that's where I had to move to cloud-based tools like PySpark. And eventually, I picked my niche into business intelligence. So that's where I build end-to-end solutions using Power BI and Microsoft Azure.
So I was coming to that. How did your career started on data visualization? So I'll just change and try to understand what all in the recent years, what all kind of data visualization projects or tools you have worked on.
Sure. So my primarily skill set is currently Power BI because that's where I'm focusing my niche in the current few years. So the nature of the projects are mostly related to implementations where organizations are trying to migrate their reporting technology from, let's say, an traditional legacy tool. Let's say there are still a lot of organizations that use Excel for reporting. They use traditional tools like Oracle BI or any other on-prem solutions for reporting. So since the data is evolving and everybody is moving to the cloud, we help in implementing scalable solutions. So that's where my niche is. And as an architect, I focus on understanding the data architecture, their current data sources, and try to understand what the stakeholders' expectations are. And sometimes I am involved in constructing the complex pipelines as well that will, get the ETL and get the reports delivered to the stakeholders. And sometimes it's more closely working towards the stakeholders, whereas how should this report look like? What should be the KPIs? So yeah, working closely with the business team and working closely with the IT team as well. So there is a blend of this that I've been done in my recent years as my role. Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with understanding a bit about dashboards and stories. So the first question would be, most of the organizations and people who are working in this area, they talk about dashboards. It's like it become something very key to the entire data related aspects. But do you think just talking about dashboards is doing justice to how data can give you insights?
Well, I think dashboard is one of the ways of presenting the information. So I always tell by this simple example, like just if you go on the news channel, right, there will be a news reporter who is just summarizing the weather forecast for you, right? So they also show a dashboard and they will show you the numbers like today, what does today look like? What is tomorrow going to look like? So this is always information presented in a sequential way or in a summarized way. So dashboards always give that, portability of information to just, plug in some source and deliver it in the most easiest form. But again, the challenges, what I feel coming with the dashboards is, again, these are challenges that can be, segregated by small companies, mid companies, and large companies, right? So small companies, I think the issue is that the tech architecture itself is not very standardized, right? So you will have data coming from all over Excel sheets. So data quality is a very big challenge, right? So although the information you are presenting is pretty it looks really pretty in a report, but the stakeholders are not confident with the information that that is being presented, right? So that's about the small companies. As the organization grows, the maturity in their architecture also comes in, right? So that's where all the tech is more sorted, but now the organization is growing. So it's very difficult for the users to adapt and govern the reports. From an IT perspective, we don't know if there are 10,000 reports lying for that particular sales data set. Who is using it? How they are using it? The information is very much scattered. So I think for small companies, to summarize, the challenges are more related to tech and more related to the quality. Whereas for the big organizations, once they deal with these solutions of quality, they are more having challenges towards governance and how to make and consolidate reports into smaller chunks so that users are actually using it.
Right. So coming back to the topic, what according to you is storytelling? That is one. So along with the storytelling, we talked about dashboards. We also talk about business intelligence reports. So there are several terms which come in the picture when you talk about storytelling, especially with data. Okay. So let's start with defining what is storytelling and then how does it differentiate or is it similar to the other terms which I mentioned?
Sure. So I think storytelling, right? I think it has an art or a sequence of, I think it's all about answering key questions. So I think first is if you are likely to just tell somebody, the first question you want to answer is what happened, right? So for example, if I am working at a car company, Tesla, I'm an analyst there. I'm presenting a report to Mr. Musk. And the report I'm presenting is that in the last quarter, my sales have dropped by 15%. So that is what happened, right? Now I can go on and dig some more about what else happened, right? So you give some more pointers, bullet pointers of what happened. So I can say that this particular region had the most drop, this particular car model had the most drop, right? The second question you would want to answer after what happened is why it happened, right? So, of course, Mr. Musk will be interested to know that, okay, the sales have dropped, but why, right? So I can look into some data sources and I can see that, okay, the competitor, let's say BYD, right? Let's say they have also launched a new segment. And so that is why they have taken up some market share, right? So the second answer that you try to uncover is why it happened, right? The third question that you should answer in storytelling is what is likely to happen, right? So now you know what happened, why it happened. Now, what is likely to happen, right? If this continues. So let's say I can, as an analyst, say that if this continues, then we might lose about 5 to 10% market share, right? So that is likely to happen. And the last way you can conclude your story is what should you do about it, right? Because there is no story. If you're narrating to someone, then there should be an insight for them or there should be an action item on them to take. So yeah, to summarize, first is what happened. Second is why it happened. Third is what is likely to happen if this continues. And fourth, the last one is what should you do about it?
Correct. So what is the role which the visualization plays in this, the entire storytelling?
Sure. So again, the same example. Let's say if I have to just make you explain about the car sales have dropped. The region has this particular region had the most drop, whereas this particular car model has the most drop in sales. If I have to write it in plain English, I'll have to probably write a paragraph or probably 3-4 bullet points. Or if there are more pointers like that, I would have to just keep on writing, right? And there will be a lot of bullet pointers. And you might not have the time or the feasibility to read that, right? So visualization is something like presenting the same information, but that is very easily readable by the humans, right? So the whole effort is done so when we talk about dashboard, right? So a difference between dashboard and report, I try to give a very simple example. A dashboard is something that you have on the car as well, right? So on the car, when you see, you're only looking at the speed, the fuel, and probably one or two the most important metrics, right? So that is what a dashboard is. A report could be a very lengthy thing where it might have hundreds of pieces of information, but you don't care about it. A dashboard could be a more consolidated 3 or 4 things, right? So especially when we are presenting to somebody like a CSEC executive, right? You have to ensure that the story is short and crisp, right? So that's when visualization turns really, really handy, and you're able to summarize those, bullet pointers into few charts and few visuals, and you can narrate the story.
Yeah. So now we were talking about the story, and you talked about if you're going to present it to a C-level executive. So obviously the story will, or the way you tell the story will differ from one particular stakeholder category to another one. Okay. So let's say somebody is trying to learn how to tell a story. Okay. What could be the elements? What should they consider? Like if I start looking at data and say, okay, this is what I found, all the 4 elements which you mentioned earlier. Now I have to present it to, let's say, the chief operating officer. Okay. How do I start? What should I consider so that it is suitable for that particular stakeholder?
Sure. So I think before, doing the hard work of diving into the data and, before jumping into the data, I think it always helps to have a communication with the stakeholder, right? What are they trying to look for? Because data is nothing but searching, right? So if you are trying to search something, you know what you're searching for. So the interview with the stakeholder always helps. Like, do you have any particular understanding about your data? What are you expecting, right? So in analytics, we call it hypothesis, right? So they might have a particular hypothesis that, hey, I feel that my car sales have dropped, and I feel that because of this particular plant, I'm losing because I know that there were certain incidents that were reported in this plant, right? So that is what their understanding is about the data. And so once we actually try to, cross-check their hypothesis and confirm their hypothesis, you are slicing and dicing the data according to that, right? So I think it's always helpful to, get their 3 or 4 hypotheses, see what the data is saying, and see if that is matching, right? So that is one. Uh, this is a very good situation when the stakeholders are very aware about what they want, right? The other situation where unfortunately there are a lot of stakeholders who would just, give very vague instructions about, hey, just get me whatever you can, right? That's a very tricky situation to be in, but you can always, in such situations, what I try to do is try to follow and see the problem from a 10,000 feet away, right? So you would first summarize at a very, let's say you have dimensions like city or a geography, right? So you can say this particular country had this sales, right? So you choose a metric, sales, and then you choose a dimension across which, the data can be summarized. So you start off with a very generalized view saying that, hey, this has happened at a country level. This is what happened at a region level. And then you deep dive at a particular plant level, right? So again, so who you are telling the story, if it's a CSEC executive who looks at the city-wise operations, you want to talk more about the city-wise data. If you're talking about a plant manager or an engineer supervisor, you want to talk specifically about that plant, right? So I think it totally depends on the stakeholder, what they're looking at, and you should base your data research findings, aggregations based on that.
Yeah. So it's important that you do some bit of research in terms of what they are expecting.
Absolutely.
Okay. So any soft skill which is important in telling story?
Sure. So I think once you gather the requirements, right, which is the difficult part, the second part is just to, keep it short, keep it simple, never try to, so we are humans, right? We have a lot of biases. So let the data do the, decision making. You don't have to, be biased about anything. So if you take up a requirement, if you see that, okay, that this is the hypothesis that they feel that this particular region, this particular car model, or this particular plant had issues, you just summarize and present the data. Sometimes the recommendations will not be taken. Let's just, agree with that. So sometimes your deliverable will just be a visualization or just your, analysis. So in that way, you can just shift your focus to just analysis. So because every time when you're presenting something, it's like you are presenting your side of view, and you have to keep it as neutral as possible. It's not that you feel that this particular solution or, this strategy should work or that strategy should work from your POV. You should not base that, right? Even these executives have a lot of biases when they come up with such hypothesis, right? So the idea is to be very neutral, be unbiased, present it in a very short and simple form, in very probably in a 1-page dashboard or one slider if you're trying to present, and always have, if let's say if the presentation is via a PPT, then always have titles on your PPT saying what is the conclusion from this slide, right? Because you might end up presenting 15 slides, but they don't know what the takeaway is, right? So always use this rule wherein you are presenting a page, you know how much time you're going to allocate to that, let's say 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And then at the end, you just re-summarize your key findings, right? In the last minute, you just say that to summarize, these are the top 3 things, and you conclude your, your brief. So I think that works really wonders because in a 30 minutes long meeting or a 1 hour long meeting, there will be a lot of information that is exchanged between, the parties, but it is very difficult to keep track of, of what is exchanged. So especially when such analytical dashboards are presented and you are presenting key insights, try to emphasize more on those insights, right? Try to re-summarize, take a pause, understand if they have any questions, right? Because it has to be conversational. If you just keep presenting till 30 minutes and you wait for the questions at one go, it is never going to work well. Nobody is going to use the reports. The entire analysis and your search efforts are going to be, kind of in vain. So it has to be conversational, and try to keep it short, re-summarize, take a pause, ask for questions, and reiterate.
So has it happened with you that you are presenting a story to executives and there seems to be no response. I mean, no response is a lack of response. Okay. So what did you make of that? And what can you do to address that problem? Or can you do something?
So I think this is, very much expected because whenever somebody sees something new, right, it is going to take some time to process the information and, comment something or give their feedback, right? So one thing what I've put in practice for a very brief period of my career is whenever I'm presenting a particular dashboard or my analysis, right, I would set up a meeting and I would set up, send a note of how to read this particular report, or there would be some notes that I would be sending before the meeting.
Okay.
Right. So it is very handy for the stakeholders because let's say if you are giving a new car to somebody, right, you have to give them at least a minute of overview that, hey, this is how you started, this is where the features are, this is how for somebody who is a seasoned expert, it's very easy for them to just read the information, right? But we cannot treat every stakeholder as one, right? So you have to always try to explain it like a 5-year-old to the executives. And what I have experienced is a simple one-pager document related to your analysis or just a how-to guide, right? It works wonders. Right. So before that meeting, if you can just prepare that and, you have that in front of them while you're presenting, it is going to be amazing. They are going to end up asking a lot of questions and it is going to be very conversational. Or else after the meeting, if you did not get a chance to prepare that, try to share that after the meeting. Try to set up a follow-up meeting so that, you can talk about those, their feedback, because if you're waiting for their feedback to be collected over a form or something like that, it is never going to be, very fruitful in my opinion. Although there are, processes, there are people, special roles that will do that and they will ensure that, that adoption and that transformation, that entire digital transformation happens. So that is something what happens in large organizations. But especially if it's a, small to mid-sized company, you should work more closely and more collaboratively and not be afraid of the feedback and, just lead it in a more conversational way.
Yeah. So continue with the same discussion with the stakeholders and telling the story. I came across two narrative frameworks. One is called Hero's Journey, or another one is Problem Solution Impact Model. Okay. Can you kind of share more details about it? What are these and how do they impact? I mean, if you follow one versus the other, when can you follow one versus the other?
Sure. So I think the first one, right, the hero journey, right? It's more about finding the highs of the data, or let's say, what is going well, right? So if you're presenting like a monthly business review, right, with your CSEC executive, let's say, you would want to start off the meeting with, what we have achieved that quarter, right? So something that were the biggest wins, something that is going well, what is really driving that. It is all the good things about the data, right? Talking about the other part, right? The difficult
problem solution.
Yeah, the problem solution framework, right? This is a difficult conversation that the teams or the operational teams, or this is more for from where an action is supposed to be derived, right? So the outcomes are totally different. The first framework is the outcome is an update where you are updating the top management or the executives or anybody in your organization about the happenings. The second is an key outcome is the action, what is supposed to be taken. So these are two separate agendas or two separate meetings, right? The level of stakeholders also vary according to that. So for the first one, you will be typically dealing with CSEC executives, or more often what is a monthly update or what is a quarterly update. And for the second one, it will be the larger team, the internal team, who are the hands-on people who are working on the business, let's say the field people, everybody who is involved. They will have their set of KRAs and the discussions will be around that, right? What we can do to make it better. What are the next action items on each, right? So that is the key, I would say, a difference between those two meetings. That first is an update. We talk about the good things and we talk about the vision as well. The second is about, what went wrong, what can we improve, and there are key action items to that. Yeah.
Okay. So the visualization or the dashboard or whatever format you use a lot of charts, right? So how somebody can decide which chart to use or which visual diagram to use for a particular presentation?
Sure. So I think that will come with some basic understanding about data visualization. So either you can learn it online, you can read some books, or the way I try to explain it is if you want to know that if you have done a good job of creating a report, just show it to your friend. If they are able to read it, then you know that you have done a good job, right? Because your friend knows nothing about that, right? They have zero context. And if somebody with zero context can read that data, then you have done a good job of creating that chart, right? So talking about some basic rules, there are some areas that are standardized. So if you want to show a trend, you would show a line chart. If you want to show distribution, there are various charts that you can show distribution about. There are pie charts, there are bar charts, there are a variety of charts. But what you need to know is, in terms of the user experience while interacting with those charts, right? So again, this is where, the difference between exploratory dashboards and storytelling dashboard comes, right? So for somebody like a C-suite executives, they would just want the bullet pointers, right? As you see on the car dashboard, right? You will see the speed, you will see the fuel. You're not going to see the engine temperature, etc., whatever some additional information is there, you will not see that. So for a C-suite executive, the key would be to summarize the data. The C-suite executive will not go ahead and click or interact with the data much. They would want to read static information and the most critical information. For an exploratory dashboard, wherein all these tools like Power BI, all the visualization tools shine, is because of their interactive nature. So if you're building an exploratory dashboard where the user doesn't know what they need and they are like, just build something for me, I'll just find out what the data says, then you build everything with the capability to slice and dice, right? That whatever dimension you select, whatever metric you select, you will be able to visualize, right? So these are the two natures of dashboards, and that is how what sort of visualization you choose will differ totally based on what is the agenda of the dashboard. Is it an exploratory one, or is it a summarized dashboard, I would call?
So sometimes the data could be very complex, right? And to tell a story with that complex set of data, it requires a lot of skills. Okay. So what do you think you would advise if the data is very complex or very kind of specific to a particular thing, which cannot be just converted into like a chart or a line chart or a bar chart or something like that? Then how do you present that data?
Sure. So I think first is, how you set the context, right? So I'm pretty sure like if, there are stakeholders in the meeting, as I first explained, that should always send a handout about, what the data is about, having a one-pager note so that it is easier for them to refer. Or if it is not a separate one-pager document, try to put it in your report or dashboard itself, right? Try to show clear titles, what that data is about. Try to show callouts that the data is between 1 year from this date range to that date range. It is about these segments, etc. Whatever you have considered, right? Because to create a report or dashboard, you filter the data, you aggregate the data, right? So I think it always helps to kind of just mention those things in a summary page, right? To just before beginning your presentation, to understand what the base of the data is, right? And what are the filters, etc., that you have applied on the data before presenting it. So they can always come up with that question. So they might have a lot of questions, but you're already answering it saying that, hey, this is a filtered data. So they might not come with a as simple as follow-up question like, why is this missing, or etc. They know that this data is filtered. So I think that helps, either a handout before or a very neatly, it does not need to be interactive. Just ensure that every chart has a title. When the dashboard was last refreshed, what is the date range, what are the filters that are applied, always have that information as a summary. And before beginning the call, always have a context setter that can, summarize that information pretty well. So this is where your soft skill of, understanding the audience and what information to present, how much to present, because you cannot end up taking 15 minutes to just go through the summary. right? It has to be short, it has to be crisp, and then you have to plan the call accordingly. So if it's a 30 minutes call, you have to pre-plan it saying that, okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes on the intro, 15 minutes on the first slide, and the remaining time on the second slide. So it has to be all pre-planned. Yeah.
So, just a follow up question. As you're talking about how you're going to plan the storytelling session, so typically these reports or these visualizations, they are based on an existing project, right, or a product, right? So, do you also interact with the other team members when you're doing this, or it is like an independent thing which works in isolation?
So depends what your role is. So I've worked across multiple roles, and I have been in the shoes where I was the lone person responsible for delivering the insights. It's always difficult, and that's what a role of a consultant is. They will try to analyze what the business is doing, and they will share their recommendations, which is either taken or not taken. And when you're working with cross-functional teams, you have the fortune to work with a lot of skilled, lot of amazing, talented people across different teams, and that is when really the collaboration happens, right? So I think that is a good place to be in, but also the challenge is there can be a lot of ambiguity, right? So as you know, the more the cooks are, the complex the recipe is going to be. So the both setups have their pros and cons, but I think as you have more experience, you should have the capability to just drive end-to-end things on your own. Ask the right set of questions. You have to come up with the right set of questions, understand who is going to be able to answer them, right? Try to understand who. Ask those questions like, hey, if not you, then who do you think will be able to help us? Reach out to them, set up a call, get your questions answered. So it's an interesting industry to work in, because sometimes there will be teams working in complete silos. So let's say team A comes up with a requirement, seems like team B is already doing it, right? So you have to always just see that, hey, how are you doing it? And then just help them communicate amongst themselves, and then probably if the requirement is still relevant, ask them like, what can we do to make it better, right? Because this is what happens in large organizations especially. There are a lot of teams within the organizations. Every team has a different sponsor and they come up with their own projects, right? But eventually what happens is there are a lot of silos that are created, which ends up in what we call as tech debt. So a technical debt is having, let's say, a lot of reports. One example could be having a lot of reports for the same function. Let's say sales has 10,000 reports. Nobody is using those 10,000 reports, right? So yeah, so the pros and cons of having as you grow is you need to always make sure that whenever you're collaborating in a team setup, always ensure that that solution does not exist. Be very clear if you're architecting, because as an architect, you cannot just focus on the technical aspect of it, what the technical specification will be, but what is the business outcome of the solution that you will build. I think that is the most key before starting any project, right? Because the company is spending a lot of dollars on this project, so you need to be absolutely sure of the value that you're delivering. And that is actually an insight that a lot of companies, they take up a lot of projects, but they're unclear of the value that is actually being generated from the data, right? So in any digital transformation journey, especially that we architect, we will always have a 3-year roadmap, right? So whenever you're going to the client with a proposal, you have to tell them that, hey, this is phase 1. This is what you're going to get in phase 1. This is going to be the key outcome. Don't expect anything more than this in phase 1. Then you give them the roadmap of phase 2 and phase 3, right? So the expectations have to be aligned, or else it is going to be not a successful project, right? So I think, in any project setup, either as an individual contributor or working in a team, it is very essential, if it is your role, to align the expectations, to continuously have those conversations. And that's where all these processes like Agile and the project management best practices, they work wonders, is because you're delivering it in a very professional, in a very set framework. So the error margin is very less. The client cannot just come up and say, hey, what have you delivered? I did not ask for this. Because we are having calls with you every day, every week. We're getting a sign off. They cannot, do that later. So that is why different teams come in who bring in this different expertise. Somebody is very expert in terms of communicating and aligning the team. Somebody is expert in creating the technical solution. Somebody is expert in implementing them and doing more work. Somebody can do it in 10 hours. Let's say resource B can do it in 4 hours. They are that skilled. So it's always a team effort at the end of the day, and communication is key, I would say.
So earlier you mentioned about data quality. A larger question would be ethics or ethical considerations when you're using data, right? So are there any considerations when you are using it to tell a story or presenting it to X number of stakeholders, or you have some safeguards already built in which takes care of it?
Sure. So I think this is really tricky because as somebody who is starting their career, right, they would not understand the importance of data security, right? And it is very easy for somebody to, not follow the practices and, expose a very critical piece of information that is very key to the organization, right? So a lot of organizations are very sensitive about the data, and they will ensure the best practices, the architecture, the security, etc., right? So somebody who is starting out in their career, if they have joined a larger organization, there will always be trainings, etc., to make sure that you know what are the do's and don'ts, especially the don'ts of the sensitive data. And it is expected as you mature in the industry, it is expected that you know some of these practices, right? And always working in a setup like this, you nowadays if you're using a Microsoft suite of products, there will always be a tagging that can be done to your data. Either it's confidential, it's internal, etc., right? So you will learn those in the corporate trainings, or if you're working even in a small organizations, they are very verbal about it, that, hey, just be a little careful about working with this data, right? So we might not be knowing the value that we bring from that data, but once you really understand like the value that you're bringing from data, right? I would say that will be a kick. That will be a new kick that that you can, like your analysis can generate an impact of XX dollars, and this is what you can bring as a change, and this is what you have been doing, right? So I think the impact is very much valuable, and so does the data, and so that is taken care by the organizational best practices. And you should always be careful, always ask questions, relevant questions. You can, if you're working in a project setup, there will be your tech lead or your manager about what is the best form to deliver this information. Let's say in a PPT, what all things to take care, right? So let's say if you're creating a report, we always put brand logos, right? Can we put that? Can we not put that? You can always ask those questions, and there are always reviews, right? So the good thing about working in a team is not one piece of information is directly presented to the client, right? Even if you are a senior person, there will always be internal reviews, and the team shares their view, and that is when the information is passed on to the clients. So there will always be feedback from internal teams. There will be insights from the internal team, and that is a good thing to be in, to be surrounded by valuable team members. They can always give feedback, and you ensure that the don'ts are taken care, and you are presenting the information which is supposed to be presented, and you're not doing anything that is not supposed to be presented. Yeah.
Right. So that also brings into question the tool which you're using. You are an expert in Power BI. So how good is Power BI? How did you find Power BI to be a suitable tool for all this work? Are there any comparable tools in the market? And how can people learn these tools if they wish to get into this area?
Sure. So I think Power BI I've been using since very early stages back in, I think it was launched in 2015-16. And I was fortunate to get my hands on it right from 2017. So I was working in an organization where reporting was very key. We were at that time generating near real-time reports, right? So the reports that we were generating was helping the salesmen on the field to complete their targets, right? So it was near real time because we were sending those reports 3 times in a day, 4 times in a day as per the requirement. Back then it was all manual data crunching. We did automate a certain part of it. I'll talk more about the solution. But yes, back then we were, sending the Excel reports to the salespeople on the field that would help them complete their targets. And the data had to be produced more frequently in a day, let's say 3 or 4 times, so that they know how much more they need to drive their sales. So we were using our earlier tech stack was Excel, and we would get the data from SQL data sources, write a query, get the raw data, pivot the data, create charts, etc., and then do that. So there was a lot of time that was being spent here in this reporting, right? This is like a daily report. If it has to be spent, it would be about 2 to 3 hours, right? It was that kind of an effort daily. And there are a lot of organizations who do this kind of reporting. And there are more set of reports, especially if you're an analytics-based company who is trying to share insights with their clients, right? They will have a set of 10 reports as a deliverable. In their contract only they will have, right? So we were spending a lot of time, creating those reports manually, and there were a lot of chances of errors as well, right? Since they were manual. So what I discovered is, early stages of tools. So good thing about working in a startup is they don't have any caps on, what tool technology you should use. There are no structured ways of working. If you're curious, you see a problem, you just go ahead and solve it. So I was very fortunate to work in a setup like this. So I thought that this is a problem. I don't want to spend 3-4 hours every day working on this. It's very boring. So I tried to look for ways of how I can, ease my work. I was very lazy in that way. So there are tools using which you can, we partly automated it. So we ran a cron job. So that would automate the SQL extract. We had an R program installed. So that script would automatically transform the data. And we had an Excel macro, which would automatically create those charts and send the report, right? So these were bits and pieces of solution, right? Back then, we did not understand best practices. Whatever we did, 4 hours, we brought it to 15 minutes, right? So that was our win. But then later, when we realized, okay, how to make it more scalable, right? Because we did it for one report, but now we have 50 more reports like that. What are we going to do about it, right? So that's when we realized that every tool has its own limitations. And when you build a solution, right, there should be some acceptance criteria of a solution, right? Just because that solution is reducing time does not mean that is a good solution.
Yeah.
So the challenge that we were facing is the maintainability of that solution, right? Who is going to maintain that code? What happens if that code is changed in one place? How do we ensure that the code is changed in other places as a practice, as a process? So there are challenges like that in a solution. So a solution has to be scalable, maintainable, and there are other characteristics that you need to have, but primarily it should be scalable, maintainable. Security, if it is a concern, then yes. So our solution was not that. So that's when our pursuit to finding other tools started, and we discovered Power BI. So in Power BI, it was a very similar to Excel kind of a setup. And we had the privilege of not attaching the reports onto the mails and just, having the salespeople viewing the reports on phone, right? Because they would always complain that even after having an Excel report, they would say that, hey, can you send me a pic of this? I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's not my role. So you have to understand what the stakeholders are looking for, in what let's say format they would want the information to be received, and you have to make it happen, because that is what going to drive their KPI, right, which is to grow sales. So what we did using Power BI is we built reports that were optimized for mobile, and those were near real time. So we were just automating that entire process on Power BI. The entire data transformation, it was connected to SQL directly, and the reports were being built, and the salespeople were able to see it on their phones. So it was a game changer for them, because they had no more ad hoc requests. Data quality was clean, and that helped us free our bandwidth, and we were able to focus on the other tasks of the other clients, other requirements.
Which are the competitors of Power BI?
So back then, even when when we were looking at that, right, when we were looking at other tools, we obviously started with some of the free tools, right? So there was Google Studio. There were a lot of other open source tools. You could do visualization in R and Python as well, right? But again, you have to see that how your end users are also going to receive it. So we had actually created some things in R using some complex coding, and that was, so again, they used to tell us just to, can you send me a picture of this, right? So we thought that again, we will scrap that solution, we will build something new. So we did look for other tools like Google Studio. There was Tableau, which was expensive, but our CEO really loved Tableau. We had one Apple Mac computer in our org, and every analyst would just die to just go and use that and build their reports on it, because that was stunning. Any report that you create on it, it just looked stunning. And this is where you need to have a liking for what you're doing, right? Data visualization, you need to have a liking of what you're doing. So we would always fight for, we were in a POC stage where I was evaluating Power BI. One of my colleagues, my good friend, he was evaluating Tableau. And one of my friends, he was evaluating Google Studio. So we were all doing this POCs, and we were presenting our findings to the CEO. So it was an exciting, I felt like a college internship kind of a thing where, it was like a final year project or something. It was fun. And we had to give those insights on the costing as well, how much it is going to cost. So we did play a role of an architect back then. That was amazing. So eventually Power BI was picked, which I presented. So I'll not take the credit because the product is so good, I would say. From day one, from the year it has started, again, it has not been an easy journey. It was a lot of complex to build on it, but due to the tightly coupled nature, right? It's a Microsoft product, and an organization would always, and in every situation, I would see that they would use the Microsoft set of tools, Outlook, etc. Right?
Correct.
So that just fit very well in their ecosystem. That was one very major advantage for Power BI. And back then, the cost was way lesser compared to Tableau, right? So if you're looking at an organization where you have 10 to 20 users, you just buy the licenses for them for 10 to 20 users. And for a POC, we just bought like 1 or 2 licenses, just see how that goes. And the pricing was a big differentiating factor. And I think the quality of visualization, I think there were other tools that were better. I would say Tableau in terms of quality of visualizations, etc., was better. But I think in terms of any organization would look at it from a 360 degree of maintaining the solution, the cost of the solution, who are the resources. Because if you are adapting a tool, you have to hire the resources, right?
Yeah.
So a Tableau resource would probably cost you more than a Power BI resource, because somebody who already knows Excel, you can train them to, learn Power BI. So there were a lot of considerations, learning curve, etc., that was put into that analysis and comparison while presenting. And that is when we looked at different tools. And there are still a lot of tools, and it is still very competitive out there. But I would still say that Power BI is, as per Gartner, quadrant, they come up with a survey where they compare the latest tools. Microsoft is on the top tier still, followed by Tableau and Click. There are other tools as well. Google is there. There is open source tools as well. So Microsoft sits on top. Power BI sits on top of that quadrant. It has been consistently doing that. And as a close user of Power BI from 2016 to 25, it has come a long way.
Yeah. So now, if somebody wants to learn Power BI, okay, or any of these tools, let's focus on Power BI because it's also, I think, now the most popular one. So, what's the way to learn it? Do they need to do any certification, or they can learn on their own?
Well, I would say the dirty path is just to download, install, and just start playing around it, right? If you are, depends on what kind of a learner you are. If you're a visual learner who likes to, or who understands more looking at the videos, you can go to some content, you can take up some content course on platforms like Udemy, Coursera, etc. There are, good platforms otherwise who are offering an end-to-end course. And I think that support is very much required, right? Because there are a lot of courses where it is just one side of information delivery, but there is no practical assignment, or there is no, evaluation
Or
project.
evaluation, yeah.
Yeah. Because you feel that, okay, I've consumed 4 hours of Power BI. I'm a master in Power BI right now. It doesn't work like that. You have to consume content. You have to practice. You have to reiterate. So if you're a visual learner, go up, take some video courses. If you're a reader, there is official Microsoft learning path. You can just go to their site, follow a very structured learning path. And the best way would still be to do it and create actual reports, publish your reports on LinkedIn, create your portfolio. That is the way to go.
And how is the career in visualization or storytelling? How is the career prospects in this particular field?
Well, I would say there are different roles. Once you first get into data field, right? Once you get into data field, unfortunately, you'll not be able to pick and choose unless and until if you're fortunate, if you have done some background work in that particular area and you're picky about that, hey, I will just go into data engineering, right? I'll just go into data visualization, or I'll just go into data science because I have done so and so a course or learning or my interest, and this is my project. Just be open to it, because I think a lot of people don't know about different data roles. I have been fortunate to work in different aspects of these areas. So my advice would be just try to just learn from somebody. You can just DM somebody on LinkedIn who has 5 years of experience, let's say in data engineering, 5 years of experience into data science. Just talk to them, understand what they do, what their day-to-day life looks like. See if you can resonate. Ask yourself if that is something that you want to do 5 years down the line. Then go for it. If you're not sure, just dive into the data world. Do different roles, because you will end up doing different roles in data, right? And then just pick and choose, see how you feel, and then go from there.
Yeah. So last couple of questions. So you have a long career and pretty successful so far. So what are your 2 learnings which you can share with people that, okay, if you are into this field or coming to this field, these are the things which I would like to share with you guys.
Okay. Well, I would say that technical skills are important, but I think your soft skills are equally as important as that. You should take up courses on soft skills, because everybody will take up course on technical skills. Nobody tries to work very promptly and actively on their soft skills. I would say that I have, worked on those things, because I was very fortunate to be mentored. Depends on where you're working and what sort of structure you're working. You have to always be open to feedback, always be curious to where you can improve, and you should be working close to the business as well and close to technical people as well, right? Because if you're working only at one side of things, you'll only know one side of the coin, right? You will end up being too technical, who does not know how to talk to business people, how to understand what they really want. You will end up speaking only technical lingo, right? You will have to understand, like, you have to step into their shoes, just be empathetic about their problem. Try to step into their shoes, try to understand that, hey, this is the problem that they are facing. What can you actually do to help them? Just forget what your role is. If you would have been them and you would have tried to help yourself, how would you do it? So I think that having that empathy, having that emotional intelligence, having that, curiosity of just asking questions, innocence of asking questions is very essential. Because if you're very afraid of asking questions, you don't open up in meetings, you just keep everything to yourself, you take things personally, and you just work on the problem by yourself. You don't utilize the team members, you don't share the problem, you don't communicate effectively, the team is going to fail, not only the project. So I think I've learned that as a beginner, you do a lot of those mistakes. So only your technical skills will not help you. You will feel that you can, but eventually you'll know that only that will not help you. So be very open to communicate, be very expressive, uh, be curious, ask questions, and do your homework. If you are setting up a call, if you have a presentation on Friday, it has to be well rehearsed. It has to be well prepared in advance. It has to be reviewed. You cannot do things at the last moment. Although you worked at an organization where everything is fast paced, you will learn it the hard way sometimes, but you will realize the meetings of some techniques like time boxing, right? You know that this needs to be done today, how you need to plan your day, right? So as a beginner, you will struggle with that, but as you do more and more things, you will realize that I really need to plan things or else this won't happen. So I think all of these techniques will help you because unless and until you are able to communicate your impact of your work, I don't think so you can grow much, right? Because there are 10 people who will have great technical skills, great certifications, but they will not open up in meetings. They will not be able to, present their findings effectively, communicate, and be valuable, right? So if you're valuable in what you're doing, you will grow. That is what I've learned.
So last question, artificial intelligence. Without that, nothing can be kind of completed. So in your field of work, let's say Power BI or in other areas related to your work, how has kind of AI getting into it, and what kind of percentage work it is kind of capable of automating?
Oh, well, it's scary. It's in the nascent stage. I would not say scary because you should not look at it as an replacement. It is always an add-on. So you have to understand what the current roles are when it comes to business intelligence, right? You could be a business intelligence developer, the one who, let's say, develops ETL pipelines, the one who develops reports, or these are the primary roles of a business intelligence, resource. Now with AI coming in, the key roles will change, right? So let's say you will not spend a lot of time creating those reports because that can be automated, right? But the ETL or the data sets, right? That is something you will be just serving to their end users. So Power BI already has self-service business intelligence. What the agenda or the vision is that users should not spend a lot of time cleaning the data and doing the data themselves. They should have a ready-made data set called as a semantic model. They should just have the ability to just find the answers of their key questions, right? Now, earlier, what we used to do is they would tell an analyst that, hey, these are my questions, answer these questions for me. And an analyst would go and create a beautiful report. It would take a lot of time, be scared of what to present, what not. It would end up a lot of time, and the CSEC executive would say, hey, this is not what I asked for. A lot of time would just elapse in this. So from requirement to delivery, there is a lot of time in the current process. What AI aims to do is, from your requirement, because you have raised it, you find out the solution by yourself. We as the developers, we will enable you with the data set. We will enable you with the platform, with the UI. You go ahead, you try to find the answers to your own questions, right? So the introduction to AI, especially in Power BI, right? The Copilot is Microsoft's product, a chat assistance. So with that integration, what the end users can do is they can simply go to a report. They can just simply ask, what is the top 3 findings of this report? Or if they have a specific question in their mind, they can ask, what was my sales quarter on quarter, right? So this is the kind of ease what AI is going to bring. The developers need not to be scared, because if they are not going to create the reports, then who is going to do it? Their job is mostly going to shift in terms of enabling them with the data set, that is to create that semantic model. So enriching it for AI, make sure that the data modeling is done very cleanly. It is well documented. The metadata, right? The data about the data, the description, column description. If you're creating measures, which are the formulas, logic, that is well documented. There are methods in Power BI of how you can enrich a particular data set that it can be. Because if you don't enrich it, don't expect AI to work magically.
Yeah.
So the expectation with AI is a lot, right? So people will just say that, hey, show me a forecast of the next 3 years and expect that data will show that. So it does not work like that. From a developer standpoint, you have to first create those logics in your model, right? So your semantic model, let's say, will be connecting to 10 data sources. There will be some logic that you need to create. Your logic should answer that. Then only the users will get those answers, right? To summarize, so for the developers, their role is going to shift to create these data sets, to enrich the data sets, and the end users are going to have the capability to interact with these data sets in natural language.
Right. So before we close this, if after this podcast, I'm sure people will be interested to talk to you and get your opinion. So how can they reach you?
So I'm pretty much reachable on LinkedIn. I do like talk to people about any career prospects they have in terms of in general guidance if they are looking for, because the role of data is huge, right? A lot of people are equally scared, stressed, and clueless about what to do post AI. A lot of people have completed their education and they are looking for those roles. So my suggestion is, in general, they can reach out to somebody who has been in the industry, somebody like me or anybody else, since I belong to the BI industry, somebody who is an data science enthusiast, aspirant. They can reach out to that particular professional, understand what set of challenges they have faced. And I would say LinkedIn is a great platform. People are pretty open to, accept the invites, share their insights, and, share their, journey. So you can, if you're starting out and if you have questions, I think you should just shamelessly connect with people and try to build a network around it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no harm in asking
Absolutely.
questions. It's always helpful.
Yep. Steve Jobs said, ask.
Yes. And in fact, it's one of the qualities which makes your life much easier as a professional.
Totally, I would say. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Deepak, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. So it was truly an insightful discussion on mastering the art of storytelling with data. So thanks for being with us in this episode. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.